Good day, gents, and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name's Jody Cedric, as you know, and every week we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And this weekend, I got to be the fun of being an uncle because my niece, Alex, she actually plays for she's on the Olympic, like, training team, I guess you call it. So she gets to play and travel the world, and she was actually playing in San Jose. Sent me a message, said, "Hey, would you and Kaylani like to come?" So I hopped on a plane, met my brother and my two nephews, Keegan and Jordan. And I tell you, it was awesome. I mean, it was really cool. I'd never been to an in-person rugby game, and I'm telling you, man, those men and women are beast. But yeah, it was super fun. So, and talk about a beast, man. I have a great guest. His name is Brian Prescott. He's out of Colorado. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh man, doing excellent. That I've never been to a rugby game. I bet that would just be wild to see in person.
It was insane. I mean, it was real, and I didn't realize how physical. I mean, because I'd watched it on TV, but to be in the stands and to hear the impact of these men and women without pads, mind you, and they're just going at it. And my niece, Alex, I mean, they call her Spiff, and she is just phenomenal. I mean, she on the defense side, on the offense side, and I mean, she just made some incredible tackles. Just really tenacious, and it was just fun. And it was really amazing to watch the caliber of athlete, both on the women's side and the men's side. It was super fun.
Yeah, I mean, they don't stop moving the whole time
No.
unless they're just, they're going for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Man.
they are going for it. It is very physical and it's really fun. And it was also cool because, you could see the entire field, whereas on TV, you're seeing parts of it, right? So you can see where the refs are, you can see them positioning to lift people up for the kickoff. And so there's a lot different, there was a significant difference in the dynamic, being there in person. And that stadium, the PayPal Park in San Jose is awesome. I mean, it's really fun. So, but yeah, we had a great time. So, talking about full contact sport, you're a new dad. So, let's jump into that. I think your baby's what, 8 months old or so?
4. She just
4.
just
So
a little bit
you're
over
really
4 months.
brand new.
Oh yeah, yeah. It truly has been wild. And about a month ago, my wife had full foot reconstruction surgery.
Oh,
And
geez.
so she's been in the cast. She's, not able to like move around that well. So I've really taken on a huge role in our family and making sure everybody's taken care of. And it has been it's been a little stressful, but very rewarding, man. It has been yeah, full contact for sure.
So, I mean, you're brand new. I mean, 4 months. I mean, they're probably sitting up, about to crawl, right? You're at that kind of fun age.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first 2.5 months, I was like, I'm just taking care of like this little alien that came out of my wife. We feed her, we clothe her, we change her, we do all these things. And then probably about month 3, which wasn't that long ago, my daughter, she looked up at me and smiled. And I was like, oh, I get it now. I feel that connection. This makes sense, right? Because before you're just kind of going through the motions and there's just not really much yeah, just not much connection, right? You're just taking care of this little being. And now she's, starting to gain a little bit more head control. And anytime I get to walk up to her, she's just big smile and really excited to see me. It's starting to get much more fun and more rewarding because you're really starting to see that progress of like, oh, now we can't even put this kid on her back without her flipping over, on her stomach, and really trying to start to crawl for sure.
So let's talk about, there's a lot of guys that are looking forward to being a dad, right? They're kind of younger like you are, and they're starting to have that conversation with their wife or their significant other. What was that kind of preparation for you guys? What did that look like?
It was kind of wild because I was a person that I never thought I was going to have kids in my life. Definitely wasn't on the agenda. I've kind of always lived this like hedonistic lifestyle where I'm just kind of out for myself and doing these things. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've always just kind of charged for it, and it's just kind of been all about Brian. And about a year ago, this time, my wife and I were having conversations of, having kids or not, and we were uh, really at each other's throats. We were fighting about it because, I
Mm,
wasn't really super on board, and my wife's, this really great, loving woman. She's a school teacher. She, teaches sixth grade special ed. So kids have a really huge place in her heart. And so, we're just really, really fighting about it, honestly. Like just some really just like uh, very emotional times, right? It truly was like it was wild. And you know, then I guess this is just, this is truly what happened is, here in Colorado, we're a little funky. We do things a little different. And I this is funny to say on camera. I took some psychedelics. I took some mushrooms, right? And so I truly had this journey of where I was just holding this little kid, and it just felt so great, and it was just really beautiful. And after these things happened, I was like, okay, I think I could have a kid. I think it'd be really fun. It seemed like it would be a great experience. And honestly, probably about 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, my wife told me that she was pregnant, right? And she was super scared to tell me because we were having these kind of like these really big
mm.
fights. And I didn't tell her about this experience that I had. And so when she told me, she was, crying. She's like, I know this is what we, didn't talk about. And I told her like, hey, let's do this. I'm okay with this. Let's keep moving forward as normal. And it was it was something to adjust to, right? And then you have 9 months to think about it, right?
Yeah.
We're going to doctor's appointments, we're going to get these ultrasounds. You see this little kid with fingers and nose and eyes, and it just became this really like surreal experience. The process, I mean, for me, was fine. My poor wife, she has two bad ankles, and now she has this belly that she's carrying around. But yeah, the whole inception part of having kids, it necessarily wasn't planned, but definitely uh, necessary, and God's path that He wanted us to take, for sure.
You know, it it's interesting because a lot of men, I think, fall into the realm that you do, right? Or you did, right? They're very focused on building a career. They're very focused on achieving this idea of success of having a car and a house and all the toys, right? And so it's easy to build your life around that, right? And it, to make the adjustment from that mindset to now a family mindset can be a real challenge for men. And, obviously you had this crazy experience that kind of pushed you towards it and made you more open to the idea of being a father. So as I'm sure it was kind of a surprise to her that you were so open, right? And because I think a lot of times women, our wives or our significant other, they come to us and they're hesitant to share because they've met a wall in the past. And I see that happen in a lot of relationships, not just when it comes to having a kid, but just how they're managing the household or finances. And there becomes an area of friction that, if not treated well, can really canker a heart. It can canker a relationship and really put strain on it. And I love that you were honest about the friction that just this topic of having a child was bringing about. So how did you guys work through the healing process of that? Because now, not only did she say I'm pregnant and we're going to have a baby and you surprised her, but there's still some feelings that simmer underneath. How did you guys work through that?
Well, I mean, as John Lennon said, time wounds, all heals, right? So just through time and really just, getting, the nursery set up and just feeling more excited and having that conversation of, how do we want to raise our child now? How do we want to parent? And uh oddly enough, it was a easier transition because we were just able to, forgive each other and just, we had these really big feelings at this time. And then a couple weeks later, we had this huge transition and a totally different dynamic has happened, right? And that being said, 3 weeks after she told me, I quit my nice corporate job that I have with Koch Chemie. And guys, this is how Jody and I we know each other. For one, we both lived in Boise and we've crossed paths, many times, but uh we know each other through the detailing industry. And the detailing industry was my home for the last, 12 years. And so once I heard, my wife was pregnant, I was like, I need to quit my job and become an entrepreneur again because that's in my heart what I was destined to do. And also it really gives me the flexibility of, I get to hang out with my daughter during the week, right? She goes to grandma and grandpa's a couple times a week, but I at least get to spend, a Wednesday with her. That's my day. We get to hang out. It's just her and I. We cruise around, we go to Cabela's and we do things. Granted she's 4 months, so she's just hanging out in the car seat, but uh, to me it was super important to, you know, I wanted to take care of my kid because when COVID hit and all of a sudden, parents really started to have to be like, "Oh, holy shit, I'm really responsible for my kid 24/7 no matter what, even if there's no school or anything." And so, I really took that to heart. I'm like, this is my daughter, this is my kid, and I want to make sure that I am able to spend, super good quality time with her. And I want her to remember that, right? I want her to remember be like, yeah, my dad and I we always did stuff during the week. He was a realtor and he was able to, have that flexible schedule and be with her. And to me, that was really important, to just be able to have that, autonomy and to be able to do what I want. Still, we kind of
Yeah.
go back to the old me where I still want to have that control. But now I'm able to share that time with my daughter.
Which is interesting because you're taking on the huge responsibility of, all right, in 9 months we're going to be a family, with the new little minion running around our feet and wa- going for our attention. And now I'm gonna start a business too,
Yeah.
right? So you got two huge unknowns. So
My wife was so pissed. She truly was so mad, but she just knew I had to do this. And she just tells me, she's like, I haven't seen you happier, right? Because I really have never worked for anybody in my life except those, last couple of years. And I was like, it's just time to be an entrepreneur again.
I mean, kudos to you. And it makes me think back to when we started our company Zimware slash RoadFS, we started in 2009, and we started it in the worst economy. And I remember going and talking to my wife about the current state of affairs at the company that I was working at. And after I had unloaded and shared with her what had happened there during the day and kind of what had been leading up to that day, she's like, just do it. I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, you've been talking about building a business for the last 2 years, just do it. Right. And I really appreciated her confidence and her trust and her faith in me to make it happen, because I went from making a really good salary with security and benefits to all of a sudden now I'm solely responsible for everything. And I took a huge pay cut, right? But I really appreciated that she had the confidence in not only me, but in us to go after that dream and pursue it. And it wasn't 4 months later that the earthquake in Haiti hit. And we had been going through the adoption process for 2.5 years, and we were stuck. And all of a sudden, there was these huge demands on Judy and I as parents to not only all of a sudden unexpectedly take a trip to Miami to pick up our kids and then bring them home, but then to blend our families.
Right.
And I could not have done what was required for our family the first year, even 2 years, if I did not own my own business. There were just so many things that demanded my attention, right? Both for the adopted kids, but also the 4 kids that we already had, and trying to figure out, how to blend our families, how to bridge the language barrier, how to deal with, health issues, and the whole crazy dynamic that hit us. I could have never done it without being an entrepreneur.
No, and to circle back to that, it's like right now, my wife's in a cast and she really can't do much. And so I have to be home all the time unless, she goes over to her parents' house. So I have to take care of my wife and my daughter. And so there's just, yeah, there's absolutely no way that I could have done that if I was working a normal, 9 to 5 job, because yeah, my the last 3 weeks, I've worked a little bit here and there, but it's just been about taking care of my family, and I've been so grateful to be able to do that.
So, looking back, I mean, you're a new dad, 4 months, but I really look at it as a transition from when you had your psychedelic experience to your wife giving you the news. I mean, so you're really looking at a year journey, a little over a year journey. Looking back, I mean, you're a new dad. What kind of surprised you about being a dad? And what do you think would be helpful not only for new dads, but for dads that already have kids that are, a little older, or even moving out of the house?
Well, at least for me, and this sounds terrible, but it's easier than I thought it was going to be. To be
Mm,
honest with you, like
wow.
the process of, like, you know babies cry. Like I'm just one of those people that are just, I'm very uh I kind of go with the flow, so nothing really surprises me. And so for me, it's just like having that patience and eliminating that hurry. And what I mean eliminating that hurry is just like time is just going to take its course, and you're on that path whether you like it or not, and you do have control of your day to day and kind of steering where it is. But just relax a little bit and really just en- enjoy it, right? Because to me, as an entrepreneur, my time is the most valuable thing on this planet. Like, I'm not monetarily driven by money. Like, I don't have to make, $500,000 a year or whatever it is, right? To me, it's like I love my time so much, I would rather be poor, than, working a 9 to 5 job making, $150,000 a year. And so I guess, just being patient because it's almost like building a business, and these are things that I can reference back to just because this is my experience, is that it's just going to take time. Time is our biggest factor, and you're going to, learn a little bit more. You're going to be a little bit more patient, and so just eliminate the hurry, right? Relax. you know if you're a parent now, you already know that you're most likely going to be late to most things, because me, I'm a timely person, and I'm like, all right, let's get out the door, let's go. And then, my daughter Jolene, she poops her pants, and now I got to change a diaper and maybe some clothes, right? So there's just so many factors to where, like, before I'd be like, we gotta go, we gotta be there. Now it's just like, you know what? We're all alive, we're all happy. Let's just get there in a safe, timely manner. And there's what can you do, right? um that's one of my wife's, that's a Mariahism. It's just like, oh, what can you do? Just relax and enjoy, because you're just not going to get any of this back.
Yeah, one of the things that men really struggle with is trying to be in control. And I constantly reflect on my book, Learn to Dance with the Currents of Life, when you feel like you're drowning, because what I've discovered that just like in water, you can't control the flow and the power of a wave coming at you, right? But you can, with the right attitude and the right skill and the right positioning of who you are in your mind and also in your body, you can surf a wave.
No,
You can surf something that if you just stand in front of it, it is gonna knock you to the sand and you are gonna eat some dirt, right? But that same wave, when you approach it from the right angle, looking back and adjusting your pace to the wave and getting up to speed and in sync, all of a sudden you can do some amazing things with the current.
totally. Like, that's what eliminating that hurry, like, oh shit, this is coming. Okay, how are we going to, yeah, adapt and just go for it, right? Because that's all we can do, because being frustrated, and which happens, with kids. They're crying, or it's late at night, or you just didn't sleep because they didn't sleep. And it's just like, you don't want to reflect that onto them, because they're there. They're sucking in everything. They're analyzing everything. Just imagine being in a place where everything looked new, right? You're just like, wow, I've never seen this color before. So they're just really perceptive. And, I found myself where I'm just like, okay, we just have to eliminate this hurry that I'm trying to be in. And whether that be frustration, or, oh my God, I got to get this diaper change in this bottle, in this kid's mouth, so she stops driving me insane. And so she's not crying and my wife can sleep. So yeah, I mean, there's some big waves, and they'll get you. They will,
And they will get you.
Yeah.
I think back to when I was doing my first Ironman. The one thing that I was really cognizant that I needed to train and prepare for was the swim. What I was not prepared for was the tumult that ensued the moment the gun fired and we entered the water. There were arms and legs and splashing, and people were bumping into me. I was bumping into them. And I remember getting into kind of this state of like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Right. And all of a sudden I just stopped and I just started treading water. And I'm watching all of these guys swim and try to race through it and bump into each other. And I really was conscientious of putting my head in a good space. And I'm like, look, I can't control everybody around me, but I can control my attitude and what I'm going to do. So I literally looked at the buoy and I said, all right, I'm going to just get into a rhythm. And I mentally was counting strokes and going, all right, breathe, breathe, breathe. And somebody would bump in is like, don't worry about it. And when you take that kind of mindset into your parenting, because chaos inevitably ensues,
Totally.
whether you're walking out the door with the baby and all of a sudden they throw up all over you and you're changing them and you, right? I'm sure that's happened to you. Or, they're 8 years old and they hit a ball and they break somebody's window, or, you know, there's so many things that inevitably come up as a dad, and how you react sets a tone for how your kids will respond.
No,
So, learning how to master yourself in chaos enables you to navigate very turbulent times as a father.
yeah, I mean, patience was definitely never my greatest virtue, right? And even, being empathetic and things like that, but now I'm like I'm I'm learning, of how to navigate this new life of mine, with my wife, even we have a new relationship, right? And the relationship, with our daughter, and it's just it has been wild. It truly has been quite the experience. Every once in a while I'll ask Alexa, how long ago was it, and until my daughter was born, and I think today was like, I don't know, 134 days, right? So that quickly, 134 days have slipped away. And that's another thing. Time is just flying. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's Friday again? Like, how did Friday
Yeah.
come? And
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily one of those people that, I live for the weekend. It's just, days are whether I work or not, or I spend time with my family, or I go fishing, right? And so, and I'm just like, man, it's Friday again. It's Friday again. Like, what's happening? And time is just, man, it is going so fast. It is crazy.
So I have a question for you. Is it going to take mushrooms to do number two?
Uh, man, so my wife's we've kind of talked about that, because I joke with her. I'm like, I think it might be time to, maybe go get a vasectomy, and just to start a conversation. And she's like, no, I want to have another kid. And, and I'm not gonna say I've compromised on one, and I don't wanna say that, but it's just like it's taken me a lot to get here. And, just kind of in the sense right now where I'm taking care of my wife and daughter, um, I think it would just be truly overwhelming at this point in my life. But, who knows what 2 years down the road brings. I might be a totally different Brian, and, be very open to the idea. But yeah, I think just one in the works for now, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I said that joking, but I guess my 2 cents on that would be, it take your time. Don't
Yeah.
even think about it, right? And it's fun to kind of joke about it, especially because of your experience, right? And and I think the thing that I really appreciate is that you guys are having this dialogue all through the process, and you're working through, should we do this? I want to do this. I don't want to do this. And wrestling with that. And I think some relationships really struggle because they never learn how to have the difficult discussion and be able to respect the other side and be patient as you grow together. Because, like you said, how I feel about something today may be completely different in 2 years because I'm different. We're different. And I think a lot of times we struggle, we cause ourselves contention and ill feelings because we don't create fertile ground where we can have a conversation where we're exploring each other's feelings and giving space for different feelings. And in that journey, creating harmony between the two.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've always enjoyed about myself, at least. I don't necessarily call them difficult conversations. I call them courageous conversations because it takes a lot of courage to be able to be like, okay, this is how I'm truly really feeling. Not like, kind of sugarcoating it, oh yeah, I don't know. Like, no, these are my actual feelings. And, my wife has been uh very perceptive to that. And she kind of grew up in a household where they didn't really talk about their feelings. It was just a very you're the kids, we're the parents, and there was never much dialogue. And I kind of grew up in a family where, at least with my dad, I could talk to him about anything. Like, no, no scare, or no like, oh, am I gonna get in trouble or anything like that. So for me, I have to kind of coerce that out of my wife a little bit,
Mm,
and using negotiating tactics that I've learned through books and things, just to like help draw these conversations out, because I really want to have I need to know your real feelings, right? Like, I know you're saying one thing, but your body is telling me a little bit something different. So let's make this very comfortable, and chat about it, because these are things you have to talk about, because maybe you put yourself in a position that you don't want to be in because you didn't have this conversation, and now there's resentment that has grown in this
mm.
relationship. And that's you know a a, a big fear that totally can happen. And I think people don't see that coming because they're not very perceptive about feelings, and talking about the real shit that you need to talk about.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, guys, have those courageous conversations with your wife or spouse or whoever, because there's some real big feelings behind a lot of different topics, and kids is one of them. Like, we totally had, you know uh and I use this term, knockout drag out, like, kind of fights about it, where we're just like very emotional, crying, like, I can't do this, or you can do this, or I'll sacrifice this if we can do this. It was a really difficult time in our relationship, and you know really talking about those feelings brought out a lot of different things. And so, you know whatever results it brings, you have to talk about it, you really do.
I have a question in regard to that because I think a lot of couples they struggle with the idea that they can have difficult discussions and maybe they're not on the same page, and resentment and second guessing can enter in. It's like, whoa, why did I even marry this person? We're not even seeing eye to eye, right? I mean, my wife and I have been married 34 years, and we still, some new topic will come up or new challenge, and we'll confront it. And sometimes the perspective's like, whoa, why are you coming from there? And why are you coming from over here? And how did you work through that? Because I know how Judy and I worked through it, right? We're like, look, we're committed to each other, and we're not necessarily always going to see eye to eye, and we're going to respect those differences, but this is how we're going to move forward in harmony, right? We may have a little disconcerting note here and there, right? But we're going to love each other, and we're going to respect each other enough to work through that till we find some kind of unity. How did you guys wrestle with that?
Well, I mean, when we were having these conversations, like, I was like, man, this is gonna be the end of our relationship. Like, truly. I really thought that. I was like, because I'm a hard-headed person, and the people who are watching this, like, who know me, they know that I am. And like, I was like, wow, this is gonna be the end of our relationship. And that really sucks, right? And you know, we kind of let sleeping dogs lie, right? And it truly was all in a span of like, a month and a half. And I know it's kind of wild to say that I've, was kind of 180 type of thing, but I had such a surreal experience, using these mushrooms, psilocybin, whatever, to where like, I had something come over me where, I was just holding this child and I was like, wow, this seems like it would be okay. It's not going to be as scary as I thought it was going to be. Cuz you know, it's unfortunate that these conversations happen of like, oh yeah, when you have kids, your life's over, you're not going to be able to do anything. And that really hasn't been the case for me at all.
Yeah.
I'm still able to go do the things that I love and still be independent and then come back home to my family and be a father and be a husband. Um, and so I I wouldn't say that there was really a conversation where we came to a head of like an agreement or anything like that. It was just, I had my experience. A couple weeks later, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, doing a huge customer event at the Porsche Experience Center, and my wife called me at 9 o'clock at night, just bawling, you know, I got something to tell you, and I thought someone died, and it was the exact opposite. It was new life, right? And because I was like, "Oh my god, like, who died? Did my dog die? Did, like, did someone's grandpa
Yeah.
die? Like, what happened?" And so, I remember we were having drinks on a rooftop. We were kinda having this after party, and, I saw my wife was calling, and I was like, "Oh, I'll pick this up later." And, Andrew Werkheiser, he's like, "No, pick it up. It's your wife. Like, so there's a reason why she's calling you." And so I picked it up, and we had this conversation, and, she's like, "I know you're gonna be so mad, I'm pregnant and blah, blah, blah." And I told her, I was like, "Okay, this is okay. Let's do this. I'm totally excited." And, not necessarily the reaction she was thinking that was going to happen, because the next day I was going to pick her up in Nashville and we were driving home from Nashville all the way up to Colorado, right? So that might have been a really interesting experience if it went the
Yeah.
other way, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like I was giving in or anything like that to her or to her needs. It was just like, okay, this felt right, and this was, what was needed at this time. Um, so yeah, to kind of circle back about your question, we didn't really, I guess, reconcile it as far as, okay, hey, let's do this. It was just like, oh, this is happening. Cool, let's embrace this, right? Um,
The thing that I take away from that is that one, it was a process for both of you. And when the unexpected happened, the expectations were completely different, especially in the way that you responded to what she expected. And if we can give each other space to work together as well as on our own through our own process, you might be surprised what happens when the doors actually open. But I think a lot of times we shut down a conversation because it's my way or no way, right? And you even hinted that you guys were on the edge. You weren't even sure if you were going to make it. And I think a lot of couples reach this point at different phases in their relationship. They look at each other and they look at themselves and they're like, how are we ever going to work through this? But what I found is that if you create a space where you can have the challenging conversations and be respectful and open and authentic with what you really feel and what you really are hoping, when you create that kind of environment, it creates unity. It creates a place for your hearts to be seared together, not only in love, but also in respect and commitment to each other. So, wow, man, this has been a great conversation. It was not what I expected.
No, and that's like,
No,
I
which is great.
I'd rather, be candid and tell the real story. I mean, because it's just like it, it was it was a difficult experience for me because, a lot of different things happened in this time frame is uh 2020, COVID hit. Uh, and then I sold my business in Nampa, Idaho. I moved across states away from my family into this new place where I was living with my in laws in their basement for a year before we bought our house, right? And then I had a couple different career changes. And so, like, I I didn't know what my identity was, right? Because when I was in Nampa, Idaho, when I was in Boise, you know, I was Brian Prescott. I owned Gearhead Detailing. Like that was who I was. And so now I leave that I've had for 10 years in this community of people that I knew and loved and transitioned out to Colorado where I know nobody. And so it was just a really difficult time for me to really find where I needed to be and to be happy, and it took some time, and this was a factor in a lot of different things, and it's changed my dynamic, and it's changed how I looked at life. Because I 2-3 weeks later I was like, fuck it, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to start this new career. This is what I'm gonna do, and it shot me on a totally different path, and which I'm super grateful for. But if you guys ever lose yourself, sometimes it takes some time to get back, and that kind of goes back to eliminate some hurry, right? It's all gonna come around, and it's all gonna flow, and it's all gonna work itself out eventually. And if you have a positive mindset and you have some type of direction in which you want to go, even if it's an inch, even if it's just 1%, any progress is forward progress. And I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't.
I love that. Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me. I mean, you and I could keep going, I can
Yeah,
tell,
yeah, yeah.
right? But I really appreciate your candor, your authenticity, your truth, right? About where you were, what changed, and the process that you and your wife went through. And I just really appreciate that because that's really the driver of my podcast. I want to have the conversations that highlight men's experience, both good and bad. That's why I talk about, the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows. I mean, I've been married 34 years. I have 6 kids. I can tell you there are tons of sorrows, but there's also tons of triumphs and tons of joys, right? And you look back and you look at how those experiences brought you together as a family. You look at how they made you a better husband, how they made you a better man, right? And that's ultimately what it's about. So I appreciate you taking the time. Guys, if you don't know Brian, he's on Facebook. Go connect with him. He's a great guy. And obviously, congrats. He's a new dad.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you reaching out. And yeah, this was great because I think what's great about your podcast is people have these feelings, right, and have these experiences, and it's okay. It's okay to, yeah, have these sorrows and have these kind of like really life questioning events that occur. And just you got to stay strong and just keep on keeping on.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, guys and gals that are tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to check you same time, same bad channel just next week, right here on Father's Fire. See ya!